Welcome to Advent Conversations with Good Samaritan Church in Pinellas Park, Florida. Bev and Sue, thank you for being with us today. Now, in Luke's gospel, as was traditional, after Jesus' birth, his parents take him to the temple to be dedicated. And there are two people there at the temple who recognize Jesus, Simeon and Anna. Who are they?
I would say they're probably pillars of the temple. In other words, always there, always worshiping, and definitely devout believers in God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they were, to me, they were sort of different sides of the religious coin a little bit. Simeon was devout, said the Holy Spirit rested on him. Simeon means Christ, actually, in some form. And Anna is a prophet, which is a little bit different to me. She sees beyond, and he's been, he had a dream. So in that sense, I guess he's prophetic. He'd had a dream that God or whatever, I won't even say dream, however it came to him, he felt that God or Spirit told him that before you die, you'll see the Messiah. And so he went to the temple every day, waiting for that moment when the Messiah would come. Anna lived there. I mean, she was married, we were told, for 7 years, which is the number of completion. 7 days in a week, time to move on. And then she was a widow ever since till she's, and they married young. So we're thinking like 70 years. I know Bev has been a widow for a long time too, and can maybe understand some of this. And until she was 84 years old, and all she does is stay in the temple, kind of like some of the early women in the church, and they're locked in their little room. And she never left. She fasted, prayed night and day, where he was more coming and going, I think.
Yeah, kind of similar to the desert fathers and mothers.
That's what I was thinking.
A life completely devoted to prayer and solitude apart from, sharing these visions and messages from God and being with people in the temple.
Mm-hmm. And people sought them out, and people trusted them, their visions.
I wonder if we in our culture would give any credence to two elderly shut-ins who spend all their days praying and waiting for something or someone. You think we'd give them any credence?
I think it probably would depend a lot on if we knew that prior to that they had always been very devoted to God throughout their lives, and maybe if we knew that they had accomplished some other things in the past. But if you just have no history of them, it probably would be something that I would probably tend to question a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was thinking of the Pope Thomas Merton, the Desert Fathers and Mothers. Then I started thinking about I looked up wise, what makes someone wise. And Webster says, knowledge gained from having many experiences in life, which leads to good judgment and understanding. I don't know what that, I agree. I think it has to be that sense of someone who has that wisdom. Then I think of politically today, people that are, waiting for certain future things to happen that are a little bit frightening. So that give credence to people that I wouldn't necessarily give credence to. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think at least in our culture over time, we've put less and less value on those with the wisdom of age. And we tend to kind of lock our elderly away in nursing homes and whatnot. And just not really see them as valuable members of our society.
When you're put as apart or put aside, rather than the old days being part of the family, or a respected part of the family.
With how quick we are to dismiss the elderly or even the young or those with mental health conditions, especially those with, say, dementia, sometimes those are the people who are the most perceptive of what God is doing. We read earlier this summer Lynn Castile Harper's book on vanishing about dementia, and it describes this experience of moving, into that vanishing point of dementia being like moving from a painting of realism to a painting of the Impressionists. And she says it's kind of like those times right at dawn or dusk, those times where there is that vanishing point and the background kind of melds or melts into the foreground. The ground kind of melts into the sky. And I wonder, as we look for and long for heaven and earth to draw close together this Christmas, if we need to be spending more time with those we usually dismiss, those who live life in that thin place. Are there people you spend time with who help you realize what God is up to?
I was looking at it, and I think almost everybody I spend time with, I see some aspect of what God's doing. Uh, and maybe that's because I'm rather limited in who I have access to these days. But I have a couple of neighbors that we spend some time together each week, and they both are, I feel like, very aware of God working in their lives too. And then I see things. And then I thought the other thing is being at the pantry, working there. I really see God reaching out to people who are really having a lot of problems these days. They can't pay their rent, they can't get a job, they can't feed their families. And we want to say that, hey, God is aware of this. And I think this is something the church is doing.
It was wonderful in the messenger this month. The two examples from the food pantry, I thought, was really touching.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Annie Gambino, who's a part of Good Sam, for years was with L'Arche and that whole community, and her stories, or Reading Now on stories, are very powerful as well.
Yes.
And wrote down, I was remembering from a UCC, one of the meetings with Molly Basquette, talking about parenting, and said our problem too often is we praise the result, the end product, and how instead we need to praise the effort and keep going, keep trying, experimenting. And that, I think, goes along with this as well, of one another, no matter what our abilities. And I'm at an age where things change. Memory isn't always there, the word's not always there when I want it, which terrifies me about preaching these days, because I don't trust myself, or maybe there I'm not trusting God. So that's another Mary Elizabeth experience. And I thought of a story from Jim Finley, who's Catholic priest that works with Richard Rohr. And he talked about something he's never forgotten when he was a kid in church. And maybe you know this story, but he was in church, maybe there was a baby crying in the back of the church, and a child's voice speaks up. A child says, "Mommy, is that baby Jesus?" And the mother said, "Yes, honey, it is." And he said, "It took me several years to realize he was telling the truth." It is that each child, that each person, no matter what their ability, inability, that there's Jesus there, and look for the Christ.
Yeah, our son Jacob has sort of a verbal tick. He vocalizes a lot. And we've, we're around it so much that we've gotten so used to just tuning it out. But I remember a couple years ago when he was having a lot of sleep issues, and would just get up and be up for hours and hours in the middle of the night. I heard him one night vocalizing, and I'm trying to just let myself sleep, even though, I hear him out in the living room. But I finally got up and walked out into the living room, and there he was, and he's just staring. It was Christmas time, and he's just staring at the Christmas tree, and his vocalizations were his expressions of awe at just the magic of the season. And there's been a lot of moments like that where the things I'm so used to tuning out, when I finally pay attention, there's something beautiful going on. Someone recognizing God.
Yes, and I kind of think their life in those days was in a real time of darkness. They were in an occupied country, and they never knew from one day to the next what's going to happen to them. And yet they saw hope. And it's something that we, in our time of darkness, need to see the hope. And it comes from sometimes from babies and sometimes from older people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for this beautiful conversation on Simeon and Anna. It's been good to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us for Advent Conversations as we continue on the journey of this season.